Good evening. If y'all are checking in, I just got done with Gatekeepers, which was a really fun show with Jade and Baron G Rock and Shadow and um, Kai. We were talking about a really fun game, and you should go check it out on Gatekeepers. Tonight, me and Omenau are going to talk about, well, it's the hangout and whatever the hell we want to talk about tonight.
Uh-oh.
Because this is cheaper than therapy.
Oh, yes. That is true.
And I don't feel as judged.
What? You mean I don't judge you? Damn it. I judge you in a different way.
So my buddy found out he was having a son today, right?
Yeah, awesome.
And I'm like, Mazel Tov, and all the, we're all, having a good time. And he's like, hey, fat gamer. And he's like, oh, God, should I name him after my dad? And I'm like, what's your dad's name? And without missing a beat, his wife said Tiberius. I'm like, no. Wait, is Kurt somewhere in that name? Because that could be cool.
I don't know. Well, what's the? I mean, you can pick it. There's a bunch of really cool ones when you start looking at the, Well, my ex wanted to name our son August. I said, could you at least go Augustus? And she's like, no. I said, well, they're going to call him Gus. And that was the way that I got her away from that name.
Well, yeah, actually, I think the wife was about it. And he's like, I have to think about it. But I said, there's always Leonidas.
Well, yeah. Well, it's.
And she's like, that would be awesome. Then we could do like a lion motif in the bedroom. And you know how I like lions? And he just gives me this look like, you son of a bitch.
No. What you should do is you have to tell me he has to do, well, I don't think it was Leonidas. If you look at, supposedly there was one of the Greek, one of the Greek warriors out there. Because people forget, they always talk about the 300 Spartans, but there were 700 others out there. But one of the Spartans, apparently, he put a little fly on his shield. And I said, what's that? He says, when I fight the enemy, I'm going to be moving the shield so fast it'll look like it's this big. I was like, oh, yeah.
I torture my daughter with it. If she was born a boy, I was going to name her either Victor or Logan.
Okay. Well, the problem is you can't do that because she's got to run.
Well, her name is Morgana
Yes.
Raven Faye, not spelled the way you think.
That's fine. How did you get the middle name Reagan?
Raven.
Oh, okay.
I am Irish. Reagan could have been a possibility. Ooh, no.
Yeah.
A
little political on your side. That's why I thought it was kind of weird. No, I tried naming my son Corbin, and his mother was like, Corbin. I'm like, no, I do not want it to be because I hated that guy from LA Law.
That ironically, my youngest son, his name is Corbin, and they, her and her, my ex-wife and her first husband got that name from Fifth Element, the Bruce Willis character.
Yes, yeah, Corbin Dallas, yeah. But this was with the C. Actually, I think I wanted to do the Corbin Korvin. But she was like, no, it's too much like the ray, well, she was a big biology person, so she knew exactly where that was going. And like, oh, come on.
Well, then there's Laszlo, which is her Hungarian name.
Yeah, Victor
and
Laszlo is all I can remember. I don't remember what that's from.
Laszlo?
Yeah.
Well, there's Laszlo's Modern World.
Okay.
Then there was Laszlo from Real Geniuses with Val Kilmer, who lived in the closet basement thing.
Okay. But who's Victor Laszlo? I'm trying to remember what the...
I don't know. That is a good name. That is a...
Millennia. Actually, you know what? If I had a girl, I was trying to... The problem was we fought over the boy name. If it was a girl, it was going to be Aurora. um, like Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, she was really pushing Gaia, and I'm like, no, no, no. I mean, if we're going to tempt fate, let's at least have some, fun with it.
Oh,
And she's like, so we call her Maggie. I mean, that's her. We call her Maggie for short. And even my mom's like, how do you get Maggie out of Morgan? I'm like, because we do.
well, actually, one of my coworkers, I think she named her daughter Raven, um, but that was more, and the other daughter was named Ivy, and it was all from Batman characters.
At least and I jokingly said, as long as she doesn't hook up with an Arthur or a Merlin, we're fine.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Her godfather is like, man, you're tempting faith. I'm like, why? He's like, Morgana, Raven, Faye, really? I'm like, what?
Well, and I hear different things. It's always funny on how far things go back. And I know that you look at Tolkien, but I remember, as much as Tolkien's known for that, he was a professor and he did a lot of translations of Old English.
Yeah.
Sir Gawain was one of them. Sir Gawain of the Green Knight. I remember reading his version of Tolkien, of his version of that.
Of all the knights at all the knights of his table, he was the best of them. But if you read the Green Knight, he got screwed.
Well, and apparently, by my understanding, was the Sir Gawain represented the old Anglo version of King Arthur. And then you start getting Sir Lancelot, which was brought in by the Normans to supplant the, that's why he was from France and things like that. So then they became French from that aspect. So sometimes you just have to look where things go. And so who knows? Just like everyone talks about the, Tolkien this. I said, I liked his stuff that he did besides Lord of the Rings. I did.
It's such a hang-up. I mean, you can't talk. Every conversation I have about D&D, somehow his name gets brought up. When I have people out there, people we meet and you even know, because we wouldn't have D&D without him. It's like that's not necessarily true.
I think. How do I want to put this? I think that Tolkien made a lot of things popular. But let's be honest, they wanted a war game, and then they decided, hey, what about a fantasy war game? Well, at the time, what was there? Well, as much as we talk about D&D, everyone seems to forget this. I know that, like Legion of Myth, whenever he comes up, I said, there are laser guns in the old Dungeon Master's Guide, right? If you look at the old D&D, the white box, they have green Martians, which are from John Carter of Mars. To say that we wouldn't have had a game like that, it would have been different, but. Yeah, I mean, okay, fine. The elves and the dwarves would have, I think he would, well, to be fair, no, I mean, that's what we kind of would have had. But
I mean, there's all those great Greek mythology stories. The Norse weren't slouchers either. I mean, with the story of Beowulf or the poem of Beowulf. I mean, there's or Siegfried and the Dragon.
Well, and let's look where they were. They were in Wisconsin, which has a large group of
Viking, Norse.
Viking. Yeah, exactly. They have the Swedish and all of that group in there. So they have all of the Danes. They have all of that aspect in there. And so I think the big thing for me is when you start looking at the big battles between some of them, they were going through it. I know that, but to be fair, they said that they have the influence, and you can see it. The dwarves.
Oh, I can't argue that. Oh no, I completely cannot argue it. But to say that we wouldn't get the game if it wasn't for him, I think is ludicrous. I think it would have been came from a different source.
It's one of those things that sometimes it's like the number 0. We take it for granted, but there were like 500 years no one knew the number 0. I mean, but sometimes once you learn something, you can't unsee it.
Did you ever watch Big Bang Theory?
Little bits and pieces. It wasn't, actually, to be honest, I didn't have a television. I mean, even now, even the television I have now, I generally don't watch. I watch stuff that streams, but that's about it.
I was about to say, you don't seem like a big TV person. That's why I asked.
I was a
There's
huge one when I was a kid. I mean, it was like,
oh yeah, it was the third babysitter.
well, there was that. Well, then the other part was is that even when I had the streaming services, I just didn't want to sit there. I wanted to watch when I wanted to watch, which usually was before I went to work or something.
Yeah.
I could stop it and pause it. But man, during the early 2000s when you didn't have that ability, I was like, why have the television? I just did other things.
Right.
I
No,
was,
that's
I was
fair.
similarly unproductive. It was just unproductive in different ways.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is they did a spin-off called Young Sheldon.
I heard about it. I never watched it.
And I like watching it because it kind of reminds me of Laszlo.
Oh, okay.
And it drives Laszlo crazy that I compared him to Sheldon. He's like, I'm not Sheldon, dot, dot, dot. Like, you might not be Sheldon, but
Well,
there's some similarities there that we might not want to talk about.
I'm not sure if I told you or someone else, but so my son did a little movie in November, which was a fantasy theme, and so they were going over, and of course it's a 13-year-old movie, so they're not that good, but at the end, he was playing an orc and a few other things, and said, "Oh, we're gonna do this," but at the end, as they were going, they cut over that they should have been playing D&D. I said, "Oh, you'll do it in a movie, but you won't do it with your dad in real life. I see how this is."
So, no, you did tell me that, but that sounds about right. The reason why I didn't Young Sheldon is the guy who played. God, he's been in a bunch of things. The rapscallion, one of the rapscallions in Princess Bride. Not who am I thinking? Not Andre the Giant. Not You Killed My Father, but the little Sicilian guy.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. I mean, yes.
He's in Young Sheldon as a professor in the show.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't sure he was still alive.
yeah. Every time I hear his voice, I have like flashbacks of childhood in Star Trek. It's kind of weird.
Speaking of Star Trek, which everyone talks about how much they hate Deep. Well, I like Deep Space Nine. I thought it was the best of the Star Trek.
I thought Deep Space Nine was very courteous to giving Worf a good send off.
It was also one of the few that actually seemed to have. To be fair, I think that they actually had a good arc to it. They had storyline. They had the whole thing instead of trying to just make it everything in a single episode.
I mean, the whole, and I say this somewhat playfully, but the whole space Jesus that turned out to be a Cisco.
I didn't even pick up on that part. So.
That drove me a little crazy, but not enough to like make me want to stop watching the show. Honestly, my favorite character was Quark.
Well, there was Quark. I liked. Not that I knew too much. Was the guy that played Odo, which I really knew him from Benson, the comedy series. But I could. But that's one of the things that I think that people forget about is if you are so well known in a role, the best thing you can do is to get something where you have a bunch of makeup. And even though he went crazy later on, people forget Ron Perlman was in The Beauty and the Beast with Linda Hamilton in the 80s.
What did he do? I know like a lot of people are like just shit on him left and right. Was it a political bullshit?
It was political bullshit. And it's one thing to say, that's what I don't know if they're trying to go for clout, but to me, it's just easier to say, no, support so-and-so and just ignore the other person. I don't understand why they don't do that. That would be so much easier. That way you don't alienate half your audience. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, you support whatever, whoever's there. And just don't even mention the other guy. But they're just like, oh, and the same thing with and sometimes it's just the sheer hatred. It's like, what is this sheer hatred coming from that, don't ever watch me if you support so-and-so. And then they're like, why am I losing so much money? I mean, because you alienated half your audience.
Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner is one of my favorite actors. I like him so much. I forgive him for Waterworld and for Robin Hood.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, but see, that's different. That's you're not forgiving him for what he says outside. I'm like, okay.
Well, he is. I thought he was Republican, to be completely honest, because of the way his movies and the way he handles himself. I thought he was Republican, which I don't care. I mean, whatever party you go for, whatever, just be reasonable about it,
Yes.
And he came out a few years ago, and he came out like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's like it's not anybody's business, but yeah, I'm a Democrat. I'm like, oh, well, fuck.
Well,
Okay,
but I'm okay with that. You know, it's like, look, and just like I tell my son, because he gets his Democratic mother and his father who hates all political parties.
uh, is that why we're friends?
I, well, it's like, well, why do you vote for so and so? I said because I want to jam up the people at the top because if they're fighting amongst each other, they're not screwing me. That's all I'm looking for. You know,
That's a fair statement. I
I
mean,
it was okay, and I'm okay with that.
but you don't hear anything about him. I mean, Kevin Costner, you really don't hear. He's doing a TV show. He's having, he's just a very private actor, which I respect that. I don't like noisy actors because if you have a noisy actor, it ruins everything that they've been in.
I know. I mean, well, part of it is you're an actor. You want to sort of disappear when you're not in the limelight. You want to be able to get different things, and I'm okay with that. It's just nowadays I don't even know if these people believe in anything that they say, and it doesn't help that I'm not trying to be overly mean. They think that because they're good at acting, they're smart, and you listen to them and go, "You guys barely have above an eighth grade education, all right? So stop lecturing."
Yeah. I completely understand that. Plus, they're in a financial situation where I don't know. It's like the lady who wrote the Potter novels, right?
Yeah. Rowland, yes.
I enjoyed the books. Me and my daughter have read through them a couple times. I've watched all the movies with her multiple times, and
Yeah.
I'll continue doing it. If she would have just kept her damn mouth shut.
Well, you know what? Here's what gets me. She kept her. If you look at what it is, I mean, whatever you start looking at it is, she's pretty liberal, but she
Right.
wasn't liberal enough for these people, and that's what causes the big furor. And it was something,
She thought it was unfair for transvestite or transsexuals, and this is going to get me in trouble. That was unfair for transvestites to play in sports that were meant for the opposite sex.
well, she was referring specifically to women. Hey, look, if you're a former man playing against women, that's what she was really against.
Right, and I get that, and I really do get that. Back when I was in high school, there was a girl who was on the not rugby team, football team, and the wrestling team, and I
Yeah.
didn't think anything about it. I'm like, good for her, whatever.
Yes, but see, I don't mind that. I mean, this may sound weird, but women at the top level generally don't compete very well against men. I'm okay with that, but there's a reason that we have women's sports. Otherwise, and whether people like it or not, okay, fine. If that's what you want to do, then let's get rid of some women's sports entirely and just go to unisex sports.
Right.
And
Well,
if you do that, the sad thing is all that's going to happen is that you're going to have no women in women's sports. Or I'm sorry, you're not going to have women that can compete competitively in sports. And the reason I mention this is, and it's hard to say this, there was a Serena Williams was the best women's tennis player. She wouldn't rank in the top 200 of men, and that's not something. Yeah, go look it up. She played against a man who was, I think he was like top 200, maybe top 250, and he just wiped the floor with her.
was she having a bad day? Because I used to play tennis. Tennis is very much a co-op sport. I mean,
No. I mean, well, this was one-on-one. These were singles.
right? I mean, co-ed sport.
Um,
Because the only thing that really matters is hand-eye coordination, speed, and a good dex.
well, yes, but again, and I'm not trying to knock it. Is men were there's a reason that men are physically larger, and let's be honest. Like if you get someone like myself who's 6 foot and I have a 76-inch wingspan, you get
Yeah.
some. I mean, you get someone that's going over and you go, okay, look, you've got long arms, and then you get this other lady who's not quite as fast, and she's not quite as strong, and her physically her arms are not quite as long, but that's the way that I look at it. Is it's unfair to women. Now, if women want to give up that, then that's fine. Then let's just go to unisex sports. And I
Right.
was half joking, and I'm not. Well, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but let's say that your daughter has a chance at a scholarship to go to college, and I say, you know what, son, I can't pay for your college, so I want you to compete in women's sports. And you know what? You can outrun a lot of these girls. Woohoo! You got a free scholarship, bud, just because we're going to call you transgender. That's why I have the problem with it. I really don't care.
Right, right.
It's
And I bring up the high school thing because I mean, I'm not going to say her name. I seriously doubt that she'll ever find my channel, but I'm still not going to do that. She went to state wrestling. I mean, she wasn't fat. She was a healthy girl,
yeah, yeah.
and I mean, she did really good with wrestling, and I think she really did really good with football. So I mean, there's always going to be those people, with everything that are the outliers.
Sure. Well, and to be fair, almost all, we can talk about this. Yeah, Serena Williams would kick my butt, no problem. But every professional sports athlete is an outlier just by the very nature. Otherwise, they wouldn't be paid for it. But if you have an outlier, and if you look at the probabilities, if the means like here, there's a lot of overlap. And people forget that, but it's the tail ends that really matter for professional sports. That's why there's only like 400 men in, professional football, which people forget about. I said,
Right.
And you have what 10,000 at the college level.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And the average, in some of these, when you look at it, it's like, oh, okay, but how many are actually coming in a year? It's only like 120 or something. So
Yeah.
you're getting 1% of the best football players in the college level, let alone, what percentage of that goes at the high school level. So when you start looking at that, it really does come down to the point where you go, okay, and that's where the tail ends matter. But you're right. If it's a small school that doesn't have a good kicker and you have a soccer player, which I mean, I've heard this. Okay, she can't kick a 60-yard field goal, but she can kick accurately up to 40 yards. Well, most of your kicks are what? Usually going to be within the 40, 30 yards or so anyway. So, but the question is that someone that would make it at the professional level? And the answer is no, if they're going to compete. And that's, go ahead.
I wanted to join at the time, I wanted to join the volleyball team because I played volleyball a lot as a teenager. It was one of my favorite sports to play, in gym or on a beach, whatever. I liked playing volleyball. I wasn't tall, so I wasn't in front line a lot of the time. I was either rotated into the middle or server.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you guys have a girl on the football team / wrestling team. I'd like to play volleyball. Is that an option? No, it's unfair advantage.
So when I was at A&M, what they used to do is they used to get young men to play against the women in tennis.
Yeah.
Because they knew that they could get up that level. Like if you have a really high level woman in tennis, it's really hard to find a woman at her same level, but it's much easier to find a man. So what they would do is they would pay, the boys to go play against her. And that was how she trained to be at that higher level. Because, as long as you're not physically injured, and I'm sure you've noticed this, when you play at a higher level, it forces you to play at a higher level. When you play, you get better by playing.
Yeah, it's yeah. No, I get it. It's like in boxing. I purposely during training I would spar people that were anywhere to 45 to 50 pounds heavier than I was. So
Oh, and that I think part of it is I know the military has a thing called combatives, and they allow women to compete in it, but there's I don't remember exactly what the rule is, but basically the women are allowed to have like 25 pounds on the men. So if you're going to fight against a man, she's going to be physically heavier. So you might get a 150-pound man versus a 175-pound woman.
Right.
And that was somewhat to offset it. So It's just if you look at it, and they don't want to talk about this. Is that's fine, but you have to understand that if you do that, then there's no reason to have women's sports. And if there's no reason to have women's sports, then really women are the ones coming in the short end of the stick, which I'm okay with. If women want to agree to it, guess what? That's what you get. But I don't want to hear whining and complaining. Just like, what was it, that women's soccer, were they complaining about how it was so unfair with men and blah, blah, blah. That they
Well,
found
it's because the pay difference. They were being paid less.
actually, they found out they were being paid more.
I
I
looked into it momentarily. It's like, well, we're getting paid less, and I'm like, okay, that sucks.
Well, part of it is that they were being, they were included in a lot of other things that weren't in the men's contracts. But yeah, when you look at it, it's sometimes you just go, all right, you understand what this means, and so I'm okay with some of it. I just think it's one of those things that you need to be honest about it and say, okay, why do we have women's sports?
So, this Sunday on Sunday Review,
Yes.
Jack couldn't come up with anything, so I kind of stepped in, and we are going to watch Timeline, the Michael Crichton's Timeline.
Okay.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, well, that makes it easy.
It's on Stars and a few other ones. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. I enjoyed the movie. It has my favorite comedian in it, Billy Connolly.
Okay.
If you don't know in chat who Billy Connolly is, you need to look him up because he was amazing.
I may know him, but I don't remember him by face.
He was not the first teacher, but the second teacher and head of the class.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking. Oh, he was the one that also did in the Hobbit where he played the Dane, his
Dane Ironfoot.
Yeah. So we know. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
He has a couple of fun stories. I love it. I love him as a good comedian. I wish that stuff comedy didn't change. I mean, I grew up on Eddie Murphy and all of them, George Carlin, and I appreciate that kind of humor. Richard Pryor.
Well, I think part of that, what gets me about it is I look at a lot of the modern stuff and it's not funny because they're so afraid of offending everyone. And then what they do is they're just, and it comes off as spiteful.
Yeah.
And it comes off as spiteful and it's not even that funny. You're like, what? Okay, you said a point. What's so funny about that? And they're like, well, you should be laughing. Ha ha. No, I'm sorry. The whole thing is just, but the other part is, and I think this is what Hollywood keeps forgetting, I have 80 years of movies to go watch that are great. Actually, if you go back all the way to the 1930s.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay. You know what? I haven't seen everything. I still enjoy the old King Kong. I enjoy...
I really like the most recent King Kong. Not King Kong versus Godzilla, but Skull Island.
Okay. You like that. I actually liked the one...
Peter Jackson?
In Peter Jackson's 2005 one.
I like that movie, but it made me walk out of the theater being really, and to be fair, it doesn't take much, but it made me very disgusted in the human race.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was part of the whole thing is you feel sympathy towards King Kong. I mean, there was that in the one was Mighty Joe Young.
Joe Young, yeah.
But I think that was part of it was you look at it and yes, it's a beast. And even in the original, you understand why he gets mad. It's, they're taking pictures everywhere and it's like, but yeah, I enjoyed it. And, there's always, it's funny. It's just like, oh, I hate this. Well, okay. You're looking at the 1% of bad people in the world that get into power. And the problem is that it isn't that the 1% get into power, the 1% of, the psychopaths get into power. That they're all psychopathic at that. It's the problem is that the 1% of people that are psychopathic go seek that power out. So there's a far greater percentage of them. And, sometimes I've heard, the monarchy is the best way to go. And I would, yes, let's have more inbred leaders who can't do anything. The Habsburg chin, if you've ever heard that. And I mean, look, it was one thing when you used to have leaders or kings who had to actually perform, but as you start going back, it's like, okay, well, after about the 1500s, none of these people actually went into battle, and they all got to sit back and watch everyone else die.
Oh God, yeah. No, fuck. I've actually, it's funny. It's not funny, but I was listening. What was I? I just got done with King Richard the Second.
Okay, he was the one that had the bad scoliosis, I believe.
Yeah,
I
and
what?
it was a history of him. Not like it wasn't Shakespeare's rendition of him, but the history. I'm like, this guy wasn't a bad deal. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy, and the way that
So I saw something. I think it was on Nova, and
oh,
what they did was that they found a guy that looks like he had a very similar body type with the bad scoliosis and everything, and they made him armor and stuff for the guy for his body, and they showed that he could actually fight pretty well because the armor helped keep his body well enough. The problem was is that the scoliosis had caused him to get winded faster. So it was really interesting because the guy was like he could. It actually helped him swing a sword and stuff like that, and it was actually pretty cool to see that. But they think that what happened is that he was fighting for too long and he just got winded, and so they finally were able to take him out that way.
he
But
was.
yeah,
His body disappeared for hundreds of years. They found him buried underneath the parking lot.
oh well, he supposedly had killed off his
Nephews.
nephews. They found out he wasn't. Did you ever see Blackadder?
Yes, yes,
I,
I
I
did.
I loved on how they did that, where it's the where they made King Richard actually a decent person.
You
uh,
know, King Richard the Lionheart, right? All these great stories about him.
yeah,
But if you actually look at him as a person, he he caused Great Britain to the small people, as it's put,
yeah.
uh, to pay for him to be sprung from being a prisoner of war. How many times? Twice.
Well, I think what's funny was as well, and King, well, his brother, was the one that forced the nobility to force the Magna Carta on them. So the king had less power. What was that? It wasn't King Richard. It was King John.
King John,
Yeah.
who, if you look at all these stories of him and Robin Hood, he looks like the biggest piece of trash out there, and he wasn't that bad of a guy compared to his brother.
Well, you know what, though, as you say that, but he was despised by the nobility, which was, I mean, he was despised by everybody, both the commoner and the nobility. And so, and the other thing is, oh, at least a lot of them are willing to forgive things if they have a a war king, but he didn't have any of that. He had nothing going for him, and then he was, yeah. There's a reason that people didn't like King John. Mhm.
It's going to be a hex crawl, but I'm thinking a lot of people are banding, and I don't really want to talk about the OGL too much at
No, no,
all.
no. We don't have to, but go ahead and just.
But a lot of people are banning Dungeons Dragons 5e, which is fine to play other systems.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the Fate system because I have a Fate system because they have the Dresden Files as an RPG game, and I love the book. So I'm like, I'll give this a go. But in the back of my head,
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to work out a War of the Roses or the 100-Year War version for RPG, high fantasy though. I mean,
Okay.
not high fantasy, mild fantasy, maybe a Conan style game.
I will say as much, and I know Shadow's not a big fan of it. They lose the license in the summer. I mean, the license goes over to Monolith, and they've stopped printing books. Normally, they have a fire sale for Conan. Well, they had a fire sale for Mutant Chronicles, which is why everyone's like, "Oh my god!" But they'll probably have a fire sale for Conan as well. And if they do that, you'll probably be able to pick it up for the core book for $5 to $10. and several other things.
I got the core. I got the core book. DM James was nice and sent it to me. Yeah, he was being a really cool person, and he's like, "I'm going to send you this." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not going to say no to a free RPG book."
I like Conan a lot.
I just don't know the system well enough, and I'm the kind of guy I have to play it, or somebody needs to run it for me to understand it. You can put a book in front of me all day long. I'm like, hey, Bo, you want to hop in? We're going to be doing this for a little bit longer. But I mean,
well, I like Conan. I think it goes over pretty easily. It's a skill-based system. The big thing is you have to feel comfortable with two things. One is, and I was listening to Heathen Dog and Max talk about, I hate, I don't like it where the players can control things. And I don't know about you guys. You want to do that? Yeah, it sounds cool. Let's do it. You go spend a Chronicle point. I'm okay with that. I'm a much more loosey-goosey kind of person of, if it sounds cool, do it. And if I don't have to, then I'm okay with it. But I like the momentum aspect. I like the fact that I like pulp. It's not my problem with 5e was that it feels like Harry Potter is my problem with it. It really feels like it was aimed at a Harry Potter crowd. The magic users kind of feel like Harry Potter. And that's fine if that's what you want, but I wanted the grittier stuff in there. But I like the pulp thing. I don't want overly gritty stuff. Gritty's fine, but sometimes I just want to be able to cut loose and be cool.
Well, that's the argument I keep having with people when it comes to 5e, that it's like you can make that game gritty. There's a bunch of small things as a DM you could do to make that game not so streamlined as it is.
And it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. That's what gets me. The best book I've ever read. Let's go ahead.
Hey, it's a Bo. Now everybody watch their language. Bo has kids.
Hold on. Dang it. Now we're dark.
That's okay, Bo. You're fine.
No, the kids are
the kids are.
Am I good? Are we good?
You were good.
Dang it.
You are 5 by 5.
Oh.
Hey, I actually used that in the correct terminology this time. Woohoo!
Are you a radio guy?
No. I had I have a few people in my military were military people, and their jargon slang kind of kicked over. So I know what 5 by 5 means, and are you good? Yeah, 5 by 5. Does it mean it doesn't always translate the way that should, but I'd say it anyways.
Right.
It's like, so you're a square? Like, no.
It has reference to the quality of a radio signal.
Right.
And one axis is the quality of the signal, and the other one are clarity and loudness. Volume, if I recall. It's been too many years since I ran a radio.
I used to have a ham radio as a kid.
I did it for a few years and my license lapsed, and they were pretty easy to renew, but it lapsed, and that was it. So
I was in high school. And it was my uncle's. He's like, "Do you want this?" And I'm like, "Sure. This is what you need to do." And we did it, and it was fun. I mean, you meet some very interesting people.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So what game are we talking about? Was that Conan you were talking about?
Yeah, I was talking about Conan. I have an idea for a campaign I want to run. I just don't know what system it would work best. I mean, I can run Pathfinder until I'm blue in the face.
Sure.
But I want to try something different.
Sure.
And we were talking about 5e, and a lot of people saying it's too soft or it's too easy. And there's a lot of ways, in my opinion, to make that game hard. I mean, hard on not where the players are going to die every other session, but just hard.
Right. My problem with D&D and all of the D20 systems is I don't care what you say. it doesn't do anything but high fantasy well. It's what it's made to do, and that's what it runs. And if you want to run another game, it either takes a whole lot of work. I mean, you can't. I know guys say they run like Star Wars with D20 rules, but I don't know when your character has got like 835 hit points. I don't unless you make the blasters do like 8 dice worth of damage. How's it going to kill a guy with to make it a realistic game? But that's
but the old BX stuff.
Yeah.
Look at the hit points of a dragon. It's like 37.
Right.
I mean,
my colossal red dragon here had 800 hit points.
But what is it in first edition for an ancient red dragon?
I don't know, 100
maybe 100.
88. I mean,
88.
The idea really was that combat was meant to be fast and deadly.
I don't, for a game that was based off of a war game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the RP, the role playing of it. If the story's long enough and I can get my character, I'm all about the role playing. But if it's after a long week between games and I want to hang out with my buddies, I want to kill some orcs or whatever, I don't mind an 8-hour combat session because it's not therapy, but at the same time, that aggression that you have,
right,
you can work it out. None of us are young guys anymore. So where we decide to relieve our aggression is, back in the day, if somebody pissed me off, I just punch them in the face. I can't do that anymore. I shouldn't do that anymore.
Right.
Well,
but when you talk about running, translating systems,
mm-hmm.
and then I never really liked the way that D&D did armor.
No, I don't think anyone did. I don't think anyone liked the way that armor was done. We just all accepted it.
Armor never made sense to me.
No. What I'm saying is that most of us think that you're not harder to hit, you're just harder to wound, and we would have preferred armor to reduce damage.
Right. Right. So. Armor should reduce damage, and armor should also take damage. You can't just get whacked on all day long unless you're wearing full plate and getting whacked on by a broadsword, in which case you're like, haha, got a broadsword, go ahead and hit me, nothing's going to happen. But
when I was in high school, this was before I got into Dungeons and Dragons or any of the RPG. I got into Daghir / Belgarth, which is it's medieval reenactment with a fantasy twist. I mean,
I'm familiar with it. I had some of my friends were involved with some of the original groups in Tennessee, 40 years ago. So I
used to live in Tennessee. Some of those groups are probably still around.
Probably over around Clarksville, around the bases. But when we did Dagger here, we were very, very. The rule is you patted the weapons, not the person, and we hit full contact. We hit hard.
Oh yeah.
The only thing that was off limits was above the acromion to the acromion on the other side to the sternal notch. That was illegal, and that was pretty much it. If it was below the shoulder, it was good to go, and we hit hard.
Normally, anything like right here, nothing above the neck, right where that line is. I don't have much of a neck because I'm fat, but from here up is a no-go unless you're an archer or have a ranged weapon like a rock or jabby.
Yeah, it never hurt very much.
But man, there is nothing better, and I know this sounds bad, but there is nothing better than being on the field and you guys got somebody, because you never aim at the guy in front of you. You always aim to the guy to the side, the one's not paying attention, and popping him in the head with an arrow.
Right.
I know that sounds slightly sadistic, but it made me smile. So
my thing, again, now remember, this was still 25, 30 years ago, when I was in high school and we did this, and we had combat practice with our street clothes. And, it was like, hey, we're going down to the riverbed. You want to go play? Mm-hmm. And I had a full-size double-bladed halberd, double axe heads on a 8-foot-long piece of PVC, and I'd aim for the balls. That was my specialty.
No.
Oh, yes.
Oh, shit.
Because a spear is the queen of the battlefield, and taking a spear shot to the boys It'll put you on your knees.
So talking about armor, that was one thing with sorry to get you off of
No,
that.
please bring it back.
No, it's nice talking about DAG with somebody other than my normal people. It's fun talking shop.
But that's one of the reasons that Forbidden Lands is kind of cool, is that your armor takes off damage, but you can roll the dice, and the dice, if they roll a 1, well, you still keep that 1, so you can roll stuff, but then it damages the armor. The other one I like, just cinematically, is I like Conan, which says if you take enough damage, you can forfeit a piece of armor in that location rather than take the damage.
Right.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, I was going to go with the college, though. So I'm doing Renaissance Fair. There was this girl that was kind of cute, and she was going to work at Renaissance Fair, and I'm like, this would be a great way to, go spend some time with her. Well, you have to dress up in costume, and can you do accents? I'm like, oh, I know. I have no accents I could use. And they're like, so I have this Irish thing going on. And they're like, that's great. We'll have you learn these dances. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. He's like, well, there are other choices. You can either be a hawker or help the guys that are just jousting. I'm like, help the guys that are jousting? And after a couple, after that first day of jousting, the guys would actually go full tilt.
Right.
Yeah.
And Sir, I can't remember his name is. He's like, can you help me out my armor? I'm like, sure. I'm helping him with his armor. And he has this huge yellow dot. And he's like pushing around. It's like, okay, it's bruised, not broken.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like,
Big Peach.
what?
What was it? Is if any of you guys have watched Todd's workshop where he's been doing the stuff arms versus armor, and he did what is it? Tobias, the guy's in the on the Tower of London. He's going there. Well, he used to do. I don't know if it's semi-professional or but they used to do jousting. And he was talking about the stuff in the 1500s, and he went through. I was watching. I think it was a 2-hour clip of him. He was going over from the inception in the 1960s, which is where you get this big misconception from D&D, up to modern day. And they were like, well, what about this? Or what about that? And also they started finding out why they were wearing certain pieces of armor and things like that. And what always amazes me is somehow we think that we can do a better job. I don't know if you another thing I was watching in Nova, very similar, which was they were showing people in modern clothing to go fishing. And they were taking the body temperatures. And then they were showing the same ones in the Viking clothing. And the guys in the Viking clothing were actually warmer than the ones in the modern clothing. We seem to somehow forget this, is that our ancestors were pretty damn smart and they understood things. Now, they didn't have the clarity that we did, but even my friend who's a doctor said, all we're doing is relearning the stuff that the Romans knew 2,000 years ago. And that's what I find kind of that's so I think there's some of that where we think we're so arrogant, we know better than everybody. Well, if you actually go back, there's
nothing new under the sun.
Well, weren't they doing were they doing brain surgery or the it's
well, if you're relieving a hematoma, it's all if you're just drilling a hole in the head to relieve swelling. Yeah, they're all, and across cultures too. You find bodies buried in bogs in Northern Europe, and they've got the holes drilled in their head from brain surgery, for crying out loud.
And
all the way
back,
to Central America,
and it's
South
back
America,
because that which tells you that they survived. It's not just
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What was it? I have no. I mean, how should I put? I honestly, there's no way this is going to go over well. If it wasn't for the Christian church, I think we would have be further in our medical knowledge than what we are now.
There's sometimes you do that, but I don't know. There's some weird things that go into it. Even the Greeks at certain points, they'd be quoting Aristotle, like Galileo. Two similar objects fall at the same rate. But they didn't believe it, and he was showing them, for Galileo. But You know that the whole
Yeah,
idea.
you know what happened to him.
Well, yeah. Well, this is what happens whenever you criticize anyone in power. I mean, we can see that nowadays. We can see this in current day too. But yeah, but it just amazes me for the whole thing of only now are we beginning to say, well, you know what? Maybe what was it Plato? Maybe Plato wasn't that wrong about Atlantis. I mean, if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, I was
All right.
listening.
Oh God, I was actually speaking of that.
Mhm.
Oh God, I was watching something on YouTube, which is dangerous. Can be dangerous. Depends on what rabbit hole YouTube takes you down to. In the same year that Homer said that Atlantis fell into the ocean, there was a mass flooding. There was a mass flooding across all the world because of a glacier broke or something like that.
So I know that's part of the reason I went to Washington, was to go see the effects of the floods.
Right.
And anyone that's over in Washington, if you've heard about the scab lands, go out there and go get the details. You can argue about what caused it, and I like Randall Carlson's idea, and there's more and more scientific evidence going towards that, which was it appears that either a several meteors hit the ice sheets in Canada and also across Europe, which
Yeah.
caused massive floods. And what amazes me is everything lines up for about the same time, and yet, like I said, it's but it makes great for a game. That's why when I was listening to Elfbait talk about his paleo game, I said that's what I wanted to do because I want to put the characters about 5 or 10 years before this happens. And so after they get to a certain point and then it's completely upset the entire world. And the other great thing is I don't have to change that much for doing all of my cities and stuff. I'm like, oh, let me go find some places that look really old and we'll put cities there and we'll do this. And
I've got an idea for a campaign. I'm still working on it, but I've been working on it. I want to bounce. I've got like 3 campaigns. 3.
Sure.
So you guys know about the sci-fi campaign.
Yeah.
I've got this idea for a game where everybody in the party, it's sort of a pre-Bronze Age, but it's a pulpy Conan-esque, I want to have monsters and Cthulhu magic.
Yeah.
But all of the party, like, you ever see Apocalypto?
I've not heard about it.
Everybody in the party are Copper Age hunters, but your tribe has a tin mine. And you know that if you mix tin with copper, you've got the best weapons in the world. But you have to guard this tin mine. And then the party goes off and fights, giant lizards and lots of pulpy stuff. That's the idea for the party. What if you have these guys, go off and fight the equivalent of like Mesoamerican Stygian magic, half-naked priestesses and human sacrifice. Yes, but I want to put it in a Mesoamerican setting with a copper age, but your party has got bronze armor.
No, what I'm saying is RuneQuest may work for that too, but I'm saying, but this has the rules to do all of that, which is great. That's part of the reason I like Conan so much, is it gives me the ability to do all the pulp stuff. And I think sometimes is everyone wants to play stuff super gritty. Well, you know what? I just want to do like Connell says. Sometimes I just want to open a can of whoop ass and just go all out. And yes, I still have to run. Yes, I still want danger, but I don't want to just be, I want an Indiana Jones kind of style. Hey, we're going to go through. It's going to be a ride. Now
that's the 3rd campaign. I got this idea for this campaign. It's about the time you were talking about before, like the beginning, like the time just after the War of the Roses, maybe like the Second British Revolution, right?
Okay.
Not exactly historical, but is inspired by, where the party are all Puritan inquisitors after the order of Solomon Kane, matchlocks and rapiers, sailing the high seas, deepest, darkest Africa, lots of, again, half-naked priestesses and lizards and Cthulhu magic and all that stuff. But, sort of like the equivalent of an alternate England, but not England.
As soon as you said Solomon Kane, I'm like, okay, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness. Well, sign me up for all three of the campaigns.
For all three.
Well,
I got.
Hey, we got somebody behind you.
Where is that? This is son number 3, Augustus.
Hey, that's a great name.
I know, but Omanel doesn't like because it was almost his name.
No. I was trying to get Augustus. She wanted to name our son August.
Oh, okay. Now he was almost an August because August is a family name on my wife's side. But I said, sweetheart, he's not going to be born. He's going to be born in the fall. Why are we naming him August? His birthday.
Well, the problem that I had with it is I said, I didn't mind Augustus. I said, if you didn't do it, give him a little bit more, oomph. It's the name. I said, Augustus, people know. If you say just August, you're like, oh, after the month. No,
it's sort of an old timey, pioneering, like cross the plains in a covered wagon kind of name.
No, I'm not against it. It's one of those.
No,
things.
not Augustus. August.
Yeah.
Augustus.
Well, I like Augustus better myself. So your son.
We're even budget right now. Actually, not right this minute, but tonight we were working on your Neo dog, Omen.
Oh, cool.
We're kind of using like rules, kind of like a familiar with,
Yeah. No, I mean that's
cool. The telepathic mind. And actually, I was reading the book again. Where I was reading the part where Johnny is at the because Neo dog is only one place twice in the book, really. You hear about one, and then he talks about one. But when he talks about it, he's like, okay, well, the Neo dog, it can kind of speak, but it's got a speech impediment. It's got the intelligence of, a moron is the word Heinlein used. So it's got the intelligence of a child.
Yeah.
But and you have to have, and it talks about the empathic bond between the handler, where if the handler dies, they have to put the dog down. And if the dog dies, they wish they could put the handler down.
Yeah, I know. I love that part. Well, I also remember when they talk about when they first landed on Kelthundu,
Yes.
And they said, of course, they talk about what a hellstorm that is, where everything just goes wrong, and the Neo dogs, they freak out and stuff like that. Yeah,
the bugs freak them out.
Yeah, I enjoyed the whole thing, but what I really loved about the whole thing with that was I just had to laugh because Shadow's like, I want to be the sniper. I want to be that. I want to be that. And I said, can I just have
I've got 2. I know we're not really going to use minis for the game, but I do have some minis. I don't know if I can show them on the camera. I've got these Necromunda minis that have got these sort of like wild animal. I don't think it'll show up. Wild animal. I've got some of those, and I've also got some like cyborg dogs too. And also, Shadow sent me a box of minis from Archon that I think cool. I think there's a more traditional hound in one of those, but I haven't even started.
I know he sent me some stuff, and I guess it's supposed to be arriving the next few days.
I got mine. I got mine. It's technically still out in the mailbox. I've yet to go get it. But it's been raining all day, and I don't want to get wet.
He sent me a dragon. I'm just starting to work on right now.
No, that's actually really cool. I mean, I love miniatures. It's just I wish I had a dedicated place to actually paint them. I don't like doing it.
I've got an unfinished room in my basement.
Yeah,
where I've got a table set up and Connell, I have three minis for your character.
Wow.
I've got one in battle armor. He's upstairs, but I've got one in fatigues. No, not by his dress uniform. If I can, he's about 99% finished.
I think I even have a character's name for it. A name for the character.
Bonus if it's got Roman influence or Greek influence, but it certainly doesn't have to. Anything goes.
Oh, well, damn. I was gonna go with Rooster.
No, that's a great nickname. I love that. Not only I told you it's the from the Alice in Chains song from 1993 or 1994.
Let's see. Poly P-O-L-L-P-O. I forgot how you say chicken in Latin.
Well, Bo, you know what we said was, I was joking with him talking about Rooster Cockburn and the talking about the whole thing of, the venereal diseases and stuff since that. But hey, if he's could go by Rooster, just have that last name.
No, I think Rooster's a great name because I said in the song says walking tall machine gun man.
Yeah,
You can be a walking tall machine gun man.
I don't know if any of you guys have ever raised chickens or been around.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my aunt had chickens. I spent quite a bit of time over there.
So they're these beautiful chickens that called black Sumatras that have these gorgeous tails, and they're black. They're this beetle black. They're so black that sometimes it sheens like a
Right. There's
like a greenish color sometimes,
right.
depending on the light hits it.
Right.
Well, when I met my ex, she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get all these chickens," and so she did, and she said, "Oh, they're called game birds." Little did she realize game birds are fighting cocks.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Do I know what this is doing?
Well, she bought like 10 of them, and now probably I think that there's like a couple of females in there. It was it, but the rest of them were all males. And you know what? They didn't fight at all. All they did was gang up and rape the chicken. So, and I think the black Sumatra he ruled the roost. I mean, no one messed with him, and he had 3 spurs in each leg, but they weren't that long.
Right.
I asked my grandma one time when she raised chickens. It's like which grandpa, she needs chicken for broth or whatever. I asked her once. I was like, how do you pick out what chicken you're going to harvest? Because that was a word I grew up with. Yeah. Harvest. We harvest animals.
Sure, exactly.
And she's like, the one that pisses me off the most. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? Well, it's normally the one chicken that has like no feathers because all the other chickens are just tired of his crap.
Yep, absolutely. Chickens are terrible, man. Chickens are mini velociraptors.
Well, I had a friend of mine. He says, "But are they vegetarian fed?" Because I was giving them eggs. Well, I mean, they buy eggs for like $1 or $2 a dozen.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay. And what amazed me about the whole thing was they went over and they said, well, the vegetarian fed. I said, chickens aren't vegetarian, right? I said, no. We aren't feeding them meat, but if they can find anything, boy, especially if it was a grasshopper, boy, they would go run after them as much as possible.
I have seen chickens eat frogs and mice and anything they can catch. Now, my wife's uncle, when he raised chickens, when he harvested a chicken, he would feed the chicken bones and chicken scraps back to the chickens.
Oh, wow.
I heard that's dangerous because you can. I don't know.
Well, there are some things with mac. Actually, I did when I was in college, we were doing an emergency management thing, and I decided to go look into animal pathogens, but not ones that were really lethal. And I used the hoof and mouth disease.
Yeah. And
it amazes me for number one is the lethality is only like 1%. The real reason they do all these cullings is so they said, well, if that hits like someplace in the United States, then they couldn't sell any of their the beef overseas. Right. And that's what they're really afraid of. It's not. And at the time, the USDA did not even have a plan on how to deal with it. And I said, holy crap, if this gets into the wild pig population, there's no stopping it.
Kind of like the avian flu that caused all the eggs to be $10 a dozen.
Oh, you know what, though? I hear all these things, and it just amazes me whenever they talk about it. One is that they talk, I don't know where, okay, now to be fair, is I live where we have lots of chickens all around.
Right.
So even the really expensive eggs are like $6.50.
Well, the local eggs here at the Costco were still going for $4 for 2 dozen last time I went. So
Costco? I thought Costco, you were lucky to walk out of Costco with eggs if it wasn't like 4 dozen. I mean,
no. The one here had pallets and pallets of the 2 dozen, the double cartons.
Yeah.
Just the double cartons. Unless things changed really recently. I was there a couple of days ago, and I got a double dozen for $4.
If you really want to get some stuff that's and I don't know, like I said, for here it depends on the type of chicken eggs, and the problem is most of my chicken eggs go bad because my son's the only one that eats them.
Right.
and he's grown up with so many chicken eggs, he gets burned out.
Right.
But the same thing with ducks. If you get ducks, you like
Oh, I love duck eggs. I can't get them, but I love duck eggs.
camel khaki ducks do not, or apparently lay better than chickens. But those are the. No, my son has ducks and everything else, and I basically where he lives, his mother has just basically every animal, or has every animal that Old MacDonald has when you pull the thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that she doesn't have right now are pigs and sheep. And sheep are the only ones she has.
Sheep are a pain in the rump, and they're dumb creatures.
Well, they stink. My
And
gosh,
yeah,
Yeah,
I can get a dozen large eggs for $5.
okay. Now I
That's
and I
at
don't-
Kroger's though.
and I don't know what the local stuff is. Is the reality of it is, if I wanted to, I could just ask my ex for a lot of stuff. Just like, do you know how much cream is up here? If I want to go get unpasteurized cream, it's $10
a pint.
Yeah, well, it's a quart up here, $10 a quart.
Oh, of course, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm used to paying like $6 or $7 a pint.
Oh, geez. Well, no, this is a quart. It was what, 32 ounces. So it's 4. Anyway, if I go up to, but I have to drive 45 minutes to go up there. But they have a lot of the unpasteurized stuff, and I said, "Oh, okay." But I've also had, and I know why they do it, but it bugs the hell out of me when they're saying, "Oh, unpasteurized is not safe." Unpasteurized is really safe if the people are being tested so they don't have tuberculosis. The problem is that when you start using, illegal immigrants, which is what a lot of dairy farms use as labor. I said,
Sure.
And they're being tested for disease or anything else. So I said, that's where you get the problem. But, the farmer who's actually like milking their own goats and stuff and drinking the milk, those are
Right.
perfect. They're the only time that my ex has ever gotten sick from raw milk is when she does goat's milk. Well, she has the cow now, but was when the goat stepped into the milk, which should immediately tell you throw it out. And she didn't want to throw it out and decided to drink it. Well, okay, that's when you know. But pasteurization in many cases, that allows them, if it's not as clean, because it kills all the germs. They're like, oh, okay, we don't have to worry about it being as clean as it would be if we had it unpasteurized.
Yeah, but it also denatures enzymes.
Yeah. Well, my son drank goat's milk. The only problem that I didn't like is when they would get into the pine trees, because it starts taking taste, has that licorice taste.
Yeah.
But man, those goats took out like everything, all the ground cover, and most of the trees up to about 6 feet. I mean, I like goats, I really do. But
I actually made. I have a local grocery store, local butchery up here that will sell like ground elk and goat and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I got some of that goat, and I made chili out of it a couple days ago.
okay, so speaking of which, because we were talking about systems, Bo, you're familiar with GURPS, and I assume that's what you were planning on running all of yours in.
Well, at least that one. At least the one where it said we're about ready to go. I'm GURPS. Everything about GURPS is easy, but the combat.
Okay.
I'm planning on running some simple combat until we get things going, because you can make it as crunchy as you want, or what a lot of people that don't like GURPS don't know or don't care to know is that you can dial it way back. You can make it as simple as 5e if you want,
Well, and to me, 5e is more complicated than the old OS.
You can make it as simple as BEX if you want.
Well, that's there were a few things I like about BX, and I know that we talked about this with Connell. That's the one thing I like about DCC is with the mighty deeds, so you can allow yourself to. It gives you a mechanic to do a lot of the really cool stuff. Everyone's like, well, the DM could just do it. I said, yeah, but a lot of times the DM doesn't like it. He'll just say no. Whereas if it's kind of built in, then the DM kind of expects you to do cool stuff. And that's sometimes I think that people look at it as the mechanics are, oh, well, if you do this, it makes it really like, well, sometimes that's just to remind the DM that, hey, there's something in here that the players can use.
Right.
That's a little bit beyond it. And, if you have a good DM, then yeah, he'll let you do it regardless. But sometimes, it's just
my first love was definitely the second red box. The third edition of Basic and then the Blue Expert. We played the heck out of that game.
I remember, they call it the magenta, the whatever the one was. It had because I think I started in, it was either 81 or 82. I was 8 years old, and I think 8.5 years old. So that's somewhere right around that time frame. And my friend bought it, and it was B2. It had the, if you remember, it had the crayon, and you had to color in the with the really bad plastic dice.
Yeah, they were so soft.
Yeah, well, I look at them now, and I'm so picky about dice nowadays. I've always loved my dice to look pretty. But yeah, there's just something about the old BX, and I said, oh, well, I want advanced because it's advanced. But in retrospect, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, nope, I just like the plain BX. I don't have to screw with it. I don't have to memorize all the rules. I don't have all these other weird mechanics in there. We can just roll and go. Yeah. Oh, your character died? Okay, roll a new one. That will take about 5 minutes.
Most folks that played advanced never played all the advanced. They never played speed segments and weapon speed, or turn segments and weapon speeds, and complicated spell components. And
it slows the game down a lot. Yeah. If you start putting in weapon speed and then armor, versus weapons. Well, you know what this is. Yeah, but I have to look at a chart if I get a different weapon all of a sudden.
It's again, you were talking about earlier. It's the nature of the origin of the game. It's a game that was made for tabletop war gamers who play Napoleonics, where you have to factor in for the arc of the trajectory of your smoothbore.
Sure. It's only good for here. I'm not against it. I just but that's one of the reasons I like Conan is the weapons have things like vicious or penetrating or stuff like.
Right.
And okay. And some of it will say clumsy or there's one of them I think it says cumbersome or something where if you're strong enough you can wield it in one hand, but if not you have to use two hands.
Right. And we will be using some of those rules though.
What's that?
Which of the? I know that Shadow's got an AD&D game coming up. Does he know how? Do we know how many? What rules he wants to use with his game in terms of?
It's 1E.
I know it's 1E, but 1E has got all the fun rules, like I said, weapon speeds and turn segments. And
I don't know if he's going to that. I was trying to get him to go away from the skill based. The stuff from the Wilderness Survival Guide and the Dungeoneer's Survival Guide.
Right.
And I said, you'll find your life a little bit easier if you actually get rid of those skills. I mean, at the time, I loved those skills. But as I get older, it's like, okay, where are you from? All right. If you're skilled, we'll count that as skilled. And if you don't, we'll count as unskilled and go from there. And you're a pirate and you try and tie knots. Yeah, you're skilled in that. Oh, you're a pirate. You know how to swim. That's fine. Oh, you're a pirate and you want to know how to do fire. No, I'm not going to give that to you. You don't know how to do fire building.
Right.
Those are. I said, oh, but this guy over here who is a landlubber who doesn't know anything about sailing, yes, he's done this, and I think, in some ways, I think that helps, and you don't really feel like your character has to. How do I want to put this? A lot of times for skill-based systems, it feels that you have to get as many skills as can, or you go, this is stupid. Why can't I do it at all? And
two things. We talked about this before. Remember, we only ever roll the dice for a skill check if it matters.
Right.
And two, most skills and most games have a default.
Yeah.
And if your default is decent, if you bake that in to a default attribute, say it's your attribute -3 or something like that, then you're probably going to do okay for most things. And if you fail, then it's going to make for good role playing.
That's one of the reasons I like Conan for this is because it was really easy. All you do is you add the skill plus your stat and roll under that number. Okay, I understand. I mean, you can get more complicated to go in there, but you go, all right, well, what about this? Well, you get 2 dice. So that means that even if you have a 10 total, there's a 50% chance that there's a 75% chance you can do it. And you can make it more complicated as you get in there.
Right.
But basic skills is 75%. And yeah, there can be some complications. Okay. Oh, you're creating a fire? That's great. Oh, okay. Well, the problem is that you use wet wood. You got the fire going, but it's kind of wet, so it's smoking all over the place. All right, that's a complication, um, which could be really bad if you're trying to not let everyone know where you are. But
That's the Modifius Conan. Is it still in print?
it officially they stopped printing it, I think, on the 31st of December. However, Modifius retains the can sell it until the summer. And so that's what I was telling Connell, is if you just wait, probably they're going to have a fire sale in a couple of months with it, just like they did with Mutant Chronicles, which is why I know that Shadow was going.
So anytime I get interested in a game, it seems like it's out of print.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
here's the thing that I look at with Conan. Everyone talks about Conan, and you have the settings and stuff. I'm not saying get all the books, but man, the core book, the Book of Skelos, which allows you to do stuff with spells, and it gives you stuff for healing and things like that, enchantments, gives you an idea of how to do stuff. Some people say, well, I refuse to allow players to play. Well, you know what? There's other stuff in there besides just magic, okay? You can also look at healing and other skills. The Hyborian Age and the Game Master's Guide. If you have that, you have basically everything you ever need. And I love, when we were talking about the prehistoric, I love the fact that it talks about woolly rhinos and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I think that the old monster manual and the old, our favorite, probably my favorite module of all time, Isle of Dread, And yes, I did not have this cover. I had the blue cover, the very first one. Yeah, that was so great. He comes over and they started saying, oh, what do you have? Oh, you have pterodons, pterodactyls, dire wolves, cave bears, triceratops. I just love that stuff.
Right.
I wish that sometimes I think that everyone talks about dragons, but man, like here, the Titanothere, which, how big is a Titanothere? That was, what was that, 20 something feet tall or something like that? And what's the hit points in the old basic? 50. That was it. I like that. That makes it a lot of fun in my.
It's a missing. You mentioned pulp, and it's something that's missed that a lot of kids miss. I think, and by kids I mean your kid who's 20 something, who's never played, never even known anything, but maybe 3.5, 3.x, 5.
Yeah.
Never known. Never had to make his character fight. A horde of lizard men. Are lizard men even still in D&D?
Yeah. You can play one.
Well, I play one. Come on, I'm talking about as bad guys.
Well, alignment. I always found alignment to be a little bit of a chokehold on creativity, especially in D&D. Is like there's been several times where I'm like, I want to be a werewolf. I want to play a werewolf, a natural born werewolf. You can't. Why not? Because they're evil. Why?
Well, because, and this is what I think people forget about, because many of them are not even versed. When I was a kid, all I would do was read mythology. And that's one of the reasons I hated Level Drain with vampires. I just hated it. That isn't anything like any of the vampires I look at. Like, I don't mind it if they say, oh, if you die from a vampire, you come back as a vampire. But Level Drain, that was one mechanic I didn't like. But I will say this much. I do not like Sean K. Reynolds because he said for his views on certain things. But Godforsaken allows you, along with the Cypher system, allows you to play a werewolf if you want to do that. And as you go up in power, you get more and more control over it.
Right.
But I think that's my problem with a vampire, with any kind of inherently powerful character, is not alignment. Although you would say that if you have to play an evil character, then that's not good for the party. But unless the party's all evil and it's just everything, the trope is inverted. But the character is too powerful for the game.
I don't mind it if everyone's built at the same level. I think that's kind of cool, like you said. And I didn't mind it for stuff like Godforsaken or the Cypher system. I think does a good job for it. But yeah, if you're trying to play a gritty game, it doesn't work.
I get where you guys are going, and it's not that I disagree with that, per se.
I'm gonna kind of what we're saying really is at low levels you shouldn't have it. Boy, once you
Oh,
get
at low levels, no. When I wanted to bring in the werewolf character, we were actually like level 15, and there's already a 5 level adjustment to being one. And so while everybody is level 15, I would still been at level 10.
and see that I don't mind so much. There's a certain points where I think everyone wants to do stuff at the very beginning, and I really wish that they would do. I guess in how we grew up is, hey, look, you have these demi-humans. That was it, and you slowly expand
Right.
out, and no one really minds it if you have 4 or 5 years of experience and say, okay, I'm going to play a lizard man now. The problem that I find nowadays is people just go, oh, it looks cool. They don't understand lizard man. They don't try playing a lizard man. It's just,
It's a reskinned human.
yeah.
They don't play the character. They play their character sheet.
Well,
I don't know if that's a modern problem or if that's always been a thing. I mean, I don't,
it's always been a thing. We're just saying that I think as a kid, the kids wanted to. I want to play a dwarf. I'll play the dwarf like I saw in the Lord of the Rings. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Connell.
but I can respect that more because I don't mind them, but human-centric games kind of bore me. I know what it's like to be human. It sucks most of the time. But if you can step out and try to play something different, like an elf or a halfling or whatever, then actually give it a good goal, not just I'm BSing my way through this, but something, it's like, well, I've read Lord of the Rings. I want to be like Gimli. I'm like, that's cool. Because he has, they have an idea what it's supposed to be like. I think human-centric games are, I don't even know if there's a right word for it, are limiting to a person's creativity, because you're forcing them not to branch out to a different thought processing other than, I know what it's already like to be human Monday through Friday. Yeah, my guy's a fighter, and I've never been in a real fight in my entire life. ... But that's not the same.
I'm going to say this much though, and this is where I don't find it as much. I think this is a problem with 5e for the most part, is they don't do good settings like they used to. Even the Forgotten Realm stuff that's out there is nothing like what we saw in first edition. It's nothing like the Greyhawk stuff and the like if I said, I mean, when you looked at the old stuff, and I'm going to bring up like Maztica or Al-Qadim.
Hollow Earth. Dark
What's that?
I said Hollow Earth, Dark Sun.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying Dark Sun. I'm saying if you look at Karator, you look at Al-Qadim, Maztica, and a couple of others, all these places were different. They were mysterious and exotic, and everyone is so afraid, oh, we're going to offend it. But I don't know. When I played those systems, and Bo, I don't know if you ever did that, Maztica was like, oh, you just made the Incans so cool, and the Mayans, the cool, I want to play that. It's just like whenever we had the Oriental Adventures. You made those cultures cool. I didn't have to care that I played something else. It was something completely different. And I think the problem that I'm having nowadays is feels like a metropolitan city without any really that much different in cultures for every race.
But is that
every race now is just a reskinned human? They've gotten rid of all of everything that made different races unique in D&D. Now they're all just
I agree.
Call them gray goo. They're all gray goo.
When 3.5 in let's go with Pathfinder. With Pathfinder, you get stat bonuses and stat negatives plus extra stuff, which I think is the preferred way to do races, honestly. 5e, I can't, as much as I'd love to find an argument against it, there just really isn't a good one. But to go with I can somewhat argue Omen Owl's point. It's not 5e's problem that you have, and I'm not calling you or Bo or anyone in our circle lazy, but you get lazy DMs. that don't want to build out this is a module for whatever. I'm going to take this as the building blocks. Then I'm just going to go do my own freaking thing with it.
Well, I mean, I don't think that we. I mean, to be fair, I've been a lazy DM for a long time. That's why I kind of say, you know what, let me grab a different setting. But even and when I want to build my own, what do? I grab LiDAR data. I pick out an island that I have good LiDAR data from, and then I build out from there. And the reason I like islands is I can control where the players go for the most part, but and I use Kai because that's Kauai. I use Kauai Island because it's really cool. It's a tropical island. It's got high points, low points, lots of lakes and rivers through there. I can put a dragon there. I can put kobolds. I can put Yanti. I can put a village on the opposite side. But see, that's one thing. The problem that I'm referring to really is when you go into the player's handbook and is you go in and it gives you the basic building block. Okay, that's fine. But where are the Forgotten Realms setting books? They did an Eberron setting book, but how much do they support? There's almost no support that they used to have.
Eberron, well, first of all, I love Eberron. I would love to find somebody.
You guys are making the same point, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
the common thread? The common thread with your typical 5e player is, on your point, Omanal, they only want to play like 10 sessions. They don't play long campaigns, so they don't need big setting books. Your point, Connell, regarding the laziness of the DM, it's not the laziness of the DM, it's that the culture of D&D has changed so that the DM has no power anymore. All the power, it's by consensus, it's player driven. So whatever the players want, go. And if the DM doesn't do it, the players just find a new DM.
Okay. So
you're making the same point, and the common denominator is the lazy player, not the lazy DM.
I'm going to say this, as when we used to play, and this is why we always used to get different DMs rotating. We get mad at whatever the DM was doing. We go play our own. And as much as people talk about 6 to 8 sessions, I remember playing long sessions. All our games didn't play that long of sessions. We tried playing for long sessions. The only time, I think the longest campaign I ran was with my friend who came over almost every day, and we played almost every other day or so for D&D for 3 to 6 months. I'm like, okay. But the other one is I remember playing, and we would play every other week. I think it came out to every 2 weeks what we did. So we do every 2 weeks, and that lasted 6 months until COVID hit. And it's hard to sometimes keep people going in certain ones. People move away. So I'm not saying that everyone talks about the short part. I think the problem really comes down to is, as growing up, if you went in there, if you had the Forgotten Realms, they have tons of setting books for the Forgotten Realms. If you go to Dragonlance, they have a whole hardback on Dragonlance, and there's books that are all supporting it. I feel that the real problem with 5e nowadays, and Connell, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, is that for the players to really feel like Dragonlance, you don't buy the Dragonlance book that they just released. You go buy the 1e Dragonlance book. And that's the ridiculous part, is you have 50 years or almost 50 years of history, and you are too lazy to grab what everyone loved about Dragonlance or Dark Sun. I'm not saying that everyone has to have the perfect setting, but man, to me, Dark Sun was cool. They did the Ravenloft one, and then that kind of disappears. It's not like they're trying to support their settings overall. Is my real feeling for it. As I remember going to Walden Books, and every time that the Forgotten Realms book came out,
Your roots are showing.
What's that?
Your roots are showing.
Oh, I know.
You said Walden Books.
Yeah, I can't say anything because I used to shop there too when we had one at the mall.
Well, there was a Walden Books, there was a B. Dalton. I may be getting the two confused because I go from one to the other.
Pretty similar.
Well, no, what I mean is I go to one, and then after I went to that one, I go to the next one, in the same day to see what they had differently. But I remember going over and finding, oh, look, they came out with a new Forgotten Realms book that describes this different area. Like, they had the big one with those big maps. That's the other thing I miss. Whatever happened to
those big maps?
I mean,
5e has big maps. Unfortunately, they're in their books. If you pick up Mountain Dragon Heist, for example, They have huge maps in it that you have to either get the PDF and have it printed out, or you have to get grid paper. And keep in mind, each square is 10 by 10, not 5 by 10, and map it out that way.
No, Connell. These were inserts.
Oh,
that
yeah,
you
no.
put- that,
I
that,
got
that,
a bunch of them.
that you put up, and they were they were the size of a poster.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's, but every section, every time that you'd buy a new, I forgot how many they had for it, but every time that you'd buy a new setting book, they had the map, and so you had the big world map initially, but then then there was just like a section like this big in the world map, and that would be a full size map that you get with every one of them, and they had like 7 or 8, and I think the problem that's coming down to is, and when you talk about humans being boring, I think the problem is that the corporations, I'm not even going to say that the players, even though the players are always, some of them are, but I think most just don't care. But they're so afraid of offending anyone, they aren't making anything cool. So it's just homogenized, bland.
Yeah, I can't even argue that one. I
Well,
mean,
I, like when we talk about Cartour, that was on the east side. That made that one. When Maztica came out, that made being in South America or the Central America, I get to be a Jaguar. I turned into, it wasn't even a wear Jaguar. I forgot what it was called, but you wear the Jaguar skin and you could turn into a Jaguar. I was like, that is so cool. And then the Al Qadim, what they did is they made, and I won't call it exotic because we're in the United States. They made exotic locations intriguing and exciting and places I wanted to go to.
But they call that cultural appropriation now. So we're not allowed to do that.
somebody jumped my ass for learning Gaelic. That's culture proof. I'm like, I'm Irish.
Well, you know what? Here's what you say. Are you saying that culture isn't worth learning from? Because you don't appropriate bad things; you appropriate good things, and that's the truth. And here's what really gets me about it is, I forgot what it was. These people who were, to be fair, they're white suburban upper middle class nobodies who've never done anything in their life and haven't worked hard, that are looking for some kind of crusade to fight against. And this is what they decided to put their hill on. Like I forgot what her name was, Ariana Grande, or maybe it was someone that decided to wear a Chinese style dress.
Yeah.
And guess what? Twitter was tearing her apart by all these people. And you know what they did is they interviewed Chinese. And you know what the Chinese did? Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, they loved it because it meant that their culture had something that was worth taking. Your culture has something that is admirable and beautiful, and that I want to emulate. Yeah, I mean, if what is it? The what is it called? What's the sincerest? What is it? I'm getting it wrong, but copying basically is the sincerest form of flattery. Yeah,
imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes, right. And to imitate it, and they're like, "Well, it isn't realistic." There's nothing in D&D realistic. I'm sorry, it's all imagine.
Getting drunk at the tavern is probably the most realistic aspect of D&D. Or getting on the bartender not going anywhere is realistic in D&D.
Well, I have to laugh because if you actually look at what the percentage of beer is, we would call it non-alcoholic beer, because I think it was like less than 2% beer is what they used to make.
It was, yeah. Well, it's only yes, you're absolutely right. The Egyptians are the ones who accidentally created beer. It didn't get into its full stride until, I want to say, the monks of I can't remember, Belgian monks got hold of it, and they're the ones who made it more of what we have today. And the little interesting thing about beer was the Pilgrims. This got my daughter in trouble at school and got me in trouble. And I basically told them I don't. This was more or less my answer. Was the Pilgrims, when they stopped in America, it wasn't a planned location. Water was unsafe to drink, and they ran out ale. So what did they do? They made the first ever American beer run. They stopped where they stopped to make more beer.
But people forget, like even when I was in Germany and I got a hunting license, I have a German hunting license somewhere.
Oh God, that's
Sure.
pricey.
Well, for Americans, it wasn't so bad. But I have it's expired, but I can just go over there right now, and that gives you a lot of different privileges. But for the but at the time they said do not clean the animal with water. If anything, you'll actually take some like moss or something to clean the inside when you gut the animal. They said because water would taint the meat. And people don't, we take so much of this stuff for granted that we have clean water, but if you look at D&D for the most part, D&D is an idealized form of what we would like the Middle Ages to be. It's as much Renaissance fair as
Oh yeah.
it's Renaissance fair. It's not realistic, and yet these people are complaining about it. I said, oh, well, you're appropriating Italian, German, French, and English for the most part, and where are my Polacks? I want my Polish, my Ruski, where am I?
That's Witcher.
Well, The Witcher does that, I know, but I meant for D&D. Where are my where's my the Boyers or whatever they're called? I want that aspect, but they're so afraid of offending everyone. And I said, man, India is a fantastic place. China is a fantastic place. The Angkor Wat in Cambodia is a fantastic place. And I'm not sure, looking at some of this stuff, some of sub-Saharan Africa, like Mali, there's some great places that they could have all of these things, and yet they're so afraid. Well, it's not representative. And I said, I don't remember ever turning anyone away. And I remember I would play whatever was in the humans, but you can't do that now. Oh, it's just human because we're all the same, and we aren't allowed to mimic like the Indian culture or the Arabic culture or the Chinese culture, the Japanese culture, the Mayan.
I kind of have a rule at my table that somewhat goes along with that, but to a certain degree. If you are male and come and sit down at my table, you play a male. If you are female, and sit down at my table, you play female. If you are one of the people, hold on. If you are one thing but you identify as the other, whatever, I will let you play that. What you prefer to be. But I've had so many gamer guys who want to play female and just turn them into dumb
Sex pots.
sex bots. And I'm like, nope, this is done. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander, in my opinion. So sorry, guys, you're no longer allowed to play females. And women, the few women I had at the time, like, I'm sorry, but you can't play guys anymore because if I'm going to come down hard on the guys, I have to be fair across the board. And I've had a few people get irritated about that. I'm like, listen, as a man, I have no idea what it's like to be a woman. And play it serious. I can work around it. I can think about it, but at the end of the day, I'm a guy. I'm 100% guy. I know how, and they're like, plus it's really creepy.
Well, here's the thing that I had because I was playing online and the guy was going to play this 110 pound female. Okay, fine. I grew up with it, and it wasn't about I remember when I played, it was always, if you're playing a female, it's almost always a drow, and it's because they got higher level limits than the males, and so it was a purely mechanical thing. That's why I'm not saying that
See, that makes sense to me, but at the same time, no.
well, here was the problem that I had. He had a very deep voice, and that's the way he talked, and I would, you are ruining the whole image that I have of your character. Okay, I understand you want to go.
What was that? Shadow keeps going on and on about it.
About the
Mr. Girlfriend,
Doctor Girlfriend, yes.
Doctor Girlfriend.
Yes, but see, that's part of the. But that's the only problem that I really have with it. I don't mind so much if you do it, but this guy had a voice where, I mean, it was like having James Earl Jones play
Mickey Mouse.
Like Minnie Mouse kind of thing. I mean, it was.
Granted, I love to see that, but I understand where you're going.
I mean, well, the problem is if you saw Minnie Mouse and all of a sudden you heard this really deep voice, which is, it's fine for humor, but it's not good for a serious game. And that's but I haven't really had the problem with the sex stuff. Even as a kid, I remember hearing about it, but we didn't deal with that so much because most of the time we were like, okay, we aren't, You know, the only reason we were picking female drow is because they had higher level limits. It was all about the power. It was about the
Okay.
power aspect.
My games are rated a soft R for violence.
Okay.
And if there's any sex talk, it's just fade to black.
Yeah.
Wake up,
Well, I
it's
don't
not
even
cool.
actually. I'm weird. Okay,
Well, I mean, this is. Oh yeah.
I won't say much. I don't want to get stuck.
Well, and that's true. That's the problem that I have with it is that they think that it was racist back in the day, instead of realizing that back in the day we just thought it was the coolest thing ever to be playing these other areas, because D&D made those time eras seem awesome. Oh, you got India? We'll pick the best and coolest things of India that you can find. We'll pick the best and coolest things of China and Japan. We'll pick the best and coolest things of the Arabic. We'll pick the best and coolest things of the Incas. We don't have to be 100%, but just like, wow, this is so cool. I want to go play there. Oh, I want to go. You know, that's the excitement that I have with this. And I mean, I'm just mentioning, you know, when you look at Conan here, and I'm trying to learn Russian to be fair for this. These all had. This is what I found out is. I mean, he's got places like Kitai. You know what Kitai is? That is the Russian word for China. It was the, but I, you know, I understand. Apparently, what he was mad at is he was writing his books and things, and people were correcting him on getting certain historic details wrong. And so he kind of created his own world that mimicked ours, but wasn't our world.
Oh, Robert E. Howard.
That's that then they couldn't correct him. He's like, nope, it's a fantasy world that resembles China. It's a fantasy world that resembles, and that's the same way that we are for this. It's the same thing of, you know, it resembles, you know, Germany. It doesn't have to actually match entirely Germany. I think that if you really want to get the more realistic feeling of European, go play Warhammer Fantasy. I think that does a really good job for getting more of that Germanic feel.
Yeah, Eastern Europe. Yeah. All right, guys. It is 2300 local, and I've got to go to bed.
Yeah, I should be going to bed too, but I can probably talk. Kyle knows I can talk for a while.
Yeah, no, I can go ahead and shut down the stream. I wasn't planning on staying.
I'll keep an eye for you guys. Thanks for letting me bend your ear. And hey, watch my review. Watch my unboxing video.
Of which one?
This is my channel. It's my first video. I'm kind of got this idea where every week when I do a video, I'm going to mock the beginning of somebody else's videos.
Okay.
So where can we find you on the YouTube?
It's my name. It's Bo Paints Minis.
Okay.
I only have one video right now. I did it last night, just a little 6-minute thing, and I'm gonna paint this guy for my next video. At least start painting it, and then we'll start doing some campaign stuff. I'm gonna have some stuff to email you guys. I've got a yeah, we're just gonna have to find a way. You can find me on Discord. I know Omen, I found you on Discord, so I can send me I'll send me an email address so I can email you the campaign Bible, and I've also got PDFs of some of the books I can send.
No, that's fine. Well, I know. You
don't need the books, but you know, just at least some. You need the campaign stuff I've got so far, just so you can know what's going on.
Sure.
And I want your feedback.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm really easygoing. As you know, it's funny. As a kid, I was like, "Oh no, you can't do this." But as I get older, I'm like, "Look, I know how hard it is to be a DM. If I really don't like it, then instead of trying to fight with the DM all the time, it's like, look, man, I'm just not cut out for this. I'm not feeling it. I appreciate it, and you know, there's just better ways. You know, as I was a kid, it was like, no, we have to have everyone play, and you always get in a game you didn't want to be with just because there were only like 4 people that were there, and things have gotten better from that aspect. But
wait, I think I found you on YouTube. Hold on. Is one of your videos a wrestling match?
It's a jiu-jitsu match.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm like, I see the mat, and I'm like, yeah. Now I see it. Okay. We'll make sure, you know.
All right, but just take a look at the video, and I said I'm going to put out some other stuff later in the week. I'd like to put some kind of content out enough regularly so I can maybe get a decent webcam and start putting out some higher quality stuff. My idea eventually, I don't know what medium we're going to use for the game. I don't know, Zoom or Google or something. But eventually, I'd like to have two cameras.
Yeah, that would be ideal, I think, for all of us. I'm just cheap. It's funny. I'm cheap, but I'll buy $600 worth of gaming stuff.
It's not that I'm cheap. I'm just poor.
Well, yeah. Well, those are two different things. I don't. I'm saying
No. Poor is the wrong word. It is a state of mind. I am not poor. I'm just forever broke.
Right. Well, I'm at a position in my life where it's like if I want to buy a little something like that, I can just pick up an extra shift.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
I
I
get
think
that. And I love my daughter. I am a single father, so every extra penny I have, I end up spending it on my daughter, which I don't complain because
that's good. My kids are all here with me, so in fact they're still up, and it's 11 o'clock on a Wednesday.
So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, everybody that's in the chat. We'll do another hangout here next couple days, I'm sure. And I'll talk to you all later.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't worry about it. No, it just meant that I'm at the point in my